Now, the oil and gas sector is a crucial pillar of Nigerian economy, and recent developments such as the Dangote refineries, gas pricing, the forthcoming Port Harcourt refinery, and government's decision to implement the new gas price template leading to removal of subsidies for electricity consumers on Ban A have set the industry abuzz. Now, join us as we dissect these developments in a conversation with Olabode Sowunmi. He's an oil and gas expert. You're welcome to Business Express.
Good morning. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure to be here.
And good to have you at this time. It's been a while. Okay. On Easter Monday, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority announced the establishment of the 2024 domestic base price and applicable wholesale price on natural gas, leading to power generation companies experiencing 11% increase in price. Now, before we talk about the possible ripple effects, I understand the PIA has a clear regulatory framework for determination of domestic pricing. If yes, what other factors might be responsible for these increases we're experiencing at this time?
Okay, the PIA does stipulate that the powers to increase or to review prices lies within the regulator's power, but it also does speak to the fact that it should be there should be prices that should be sensitive to the market, which it basically means that there should be interactions and sensitivity with the market to determine what those prices will be. Now, to understand what the market really is, we need to understand how we as a gas nation came to be. So basically, we started with exportation of gas when we started producing in the early 90s. But at a point in time when we were having significant gas, we discovered that there was a need to develop local content. And that was the concept, the thinking, the ethos behind the gas master plan. Now, the gas master plan focused on 4 areas, which is LPG, your cooking gas, gas-based industries. Those are industries that use gas as raw materials and the rest. You have gas for industry, so those are machines, boilers and co that use gas, and of course gas to power, with gas to power occupying the lion's share. The thinking, the very essence of the thinking there is that they identify those strategic areas so that they can develop, and for them to develop there was special price banding there. So irrespective of whatever anybody is going to look at or going to do, they have to look at the fundamental issues of the development of the economy when doing that, and that is where the issues are. Yes, there has been back and forth, and I know we have a listening regulator, and what I believe is that at the end of the day they will ultimately do what is in the best interest of Nigeria in this circumstance.
Talking about the best interest of Nigeria, now talking about gas to power, we have 11% increase.
Yes.
Which has now led to the removal of subsidy for people who are enjoying electricity on Ban A from 68 naira per kilowatt to 225. Some say, oh, well, it's way off the roof. What is it about? Is it revenue or is it survival?
Okay, so it's a myriad of issues. It will be not exactly true to assume that it was just the increment that came in from gas that is ultimately responsible for that. I mean, even in your report, you had mentioned that the distribution companies approach the regulator. So we all know, I mean, it's common knowledge that there have been inflation issues, I mean, double-digit inflation issues in the country. And it will affect everybody, including the power sector. The difference with the power sector and every other sector basically lies to the fact that the distribution companies are not at liberty to increase their prices very well the same way the guy on the street can increase the price for tomatoes and all that. So they had to have permission to increase it. So basically, to my mind, it may be coincidental and it may also be a factor in it, but it is an aggregation of all the economic factors that have been affecting the nation that made them to look at that. The truth be told, there is, because of the hardship, because of the circumstances in the country at the moment, it will be difficult to increase it across board, when in reality that is probably what the market forces would determine. So what I believe is that they have looked for a kind of window that will basically sustain the market, because yes, we can choose not to increase prices for power and all that, but what if the industry collapses?
Talking about industry, now talking about people who consume 20 hours and above of electricity, though some have argued that do we actually have a class of those who enjoy such? One will also think this kind of power distribution should be around production areas. So with this increase in tariff, or will I say with the subsidy removed, will it affect production in any way?
Well, it is expected to, because increase in tariff also means increase in revenue. An increase in revenue means that increased revenue is supposed to trickle down the value chain. Whether that is actually what happens is a different ballgame, and that is now an issue of administration and how effectively the industry works. But definitely, increase in tariff means increase in revenue, and increase in revenue means increase in income across the value chain.
Okay, and when that being well said, at this point, let's move from gas to power. Talk about gas to our vehicles. Talking about
auto gas,
diesel, auto gas, and all of that. Now, the Dangote refinery has commenced dispensing a minimum of 1 million liters each to registered oil marketers, talking about AGO diesel, pegged at like 1,225 naira, leading to an appreciable reduction in the price of the product in the market. Now, would this have any impact on the cost of production? I'm actually interested in production.
When you say cost of production, are you referring to the cost of refining or the cost of drilling crude oil?
Now, talking about the AGO, this is what we need to power some of our machines in our production areas.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Okay, so we are talking about production in the industry. So
in the real sector of the economy.
Well, to the guy who's manufacturing, to the guy who's running a generator, it doesn't matter to him whether the diesel comes from Dangote, or it comes from China, or it comes from the moon. He is concerned about diesel and the price of diesel. So that needs to be understood. So if the price of diesel has not reduced, you don't expect any influence or impact on the production cost. So we have to separate the oil industry, the petroleum industry as we know it, in terms of its value chain, and the downstream sector to the real sector. Yes, there is a connect. There is a place where they interface, which is where they buy the diesel and all that. But the real sector will be affected primarily by the prices of diesel. But if for any reason the Dangote prices, when it gets to the market, becomes cheaper, then you expect
which is what is obtainable.
Yes, which is what has been announced.
Yes.
So we expect it based on the announcements that they will have cost of production reducing. So because the power, the cost of diesel is a factor in the cost of production. However, the decision to reduce price in a free market economy lies with the manufacturer. So except you are intervening in the manufacturing process, and in that case we are no longer running a free market. So what is expected to happen is that the forces of competition will allow the right price to prevail.
Sure.
So if one person chooses to engage in capitalistic greed and allow those forces to determine him to insist on high prices, it is expected that somebody who is more interested in a normal price gain will use a lower price, or somebody who is just entering the market will use a lower price as long as he breaks even. So that is the beauty of the free market. So irrespective of whatever the manufacturers say, we expect that the forces of competition, the situation and circumstances of the free market will ensure that the best prices within the manufacturers come to us who are consumers in that case.
Now, talking about the dynamics and principles of a free market, talking about forces of demand and supply. Yes, the Dangote is coming on board, dispensing some of this, not just the AGO. PMS is expected in May. At the same time, we're told the Port Harcourt refinery should be up in a few days, talking about supplying products to the market. This is actually heartwarming, such information. What should we expect in the marketplace?
Basically, we expect, first of all, that there won't be scarcity.
One.
We are also optimistic that this will lead to reduce prices. It doesn't necessarily mean it, but we are optimistic that it will. So when we have reduced prices, we expect that not only will the manufacturing sector become more fluid and productive, we expect that other people will be encouraged to move into manufacturing. So there will be greater capacity for our economy. Once more people are into manufacturing, that means more jobs, that means more productivity, and ultimately that means more export. So it is a chain. It is a systematic chain which we expect to be created and sustained as a result of these things.
Now, given these developments, what strategies should the government consider to attract more investment into this particular sector at this point in time to ensure possibly her long-term sustainability and growth for the economy?
Okay, so the strategy is for small and medium-scale enterprises across local governments to be aggregated, empowered, and educated. There is an assumption, albeit false, that you know how to do business by doing business. It's like saying you know how to drive by driving. One of the things that you see even in the strongest developed economies is that their local government equivalent, city hall and all that, they have programs for developing the capacity, the knowledge, the entrepreneurial capacity of small-scale enterprises across board. This needs to come up. This needs to be one of the functions of local government, and this can be supported by the regulator. It can be supported by the Ministry of Trade. In other words, the function at the federal level needs to be distilled down for capacity building. It is then that these new influences, these factors of decrease in gas prices or decrease in fuel prices can now be made effective and turned into productive capacity. So it is not just the availability that turns to production. There is an interface of knowledge and capacity building for those who will be entrepreneurial to engage in it. There is nothing that says every of the 74 local governments cannot have a manufacturing zone or a manufacturing plant, even if it's one.
Possibly cottage industries, as it were.
Yes, cottage industries and that. And there have been plans and schemes towards that. And those things are things that can be supported by government aggregating small-scale enterprises to ensure that they are productive. Yes, people should do that, but there is a limit, especially when they lack exposure, when they lack knowledge, when they lack the financing. Financing is not everything, but when there is financing and lack of knowledge and lack of capacity, you are looking at a recipe for failure. So those are the things that needs to be looked into by the Ministry of Trade, by the Ministry of Industry, the Local Government Commission, and all those who are saddled with development across those areas, so that these new policies can turn to effective and proper economic gains.
Thank you very much, Olabode Sowunmi, for your contributions at this particular point in time.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.